So it's day 5. This is our last day. Just checking our punky log trick. I don't think it worked because I actually ended up making a bridge. The logs didn't fall down in the fire. I suppose might have retained some of the heat down in here. Let's see. Not too much of the heat. Doesn't look like there's any coals. So it didn't work, but I don't think it worked for the reason that the logs didn't fall down. Anyway, before I went to bed, everything's still soaked. I only have one pair of pants for the entire trip. I have 2 shirts. I hung my shirt up. I hung up my stuff under there, but it's still really damp because it's soaked. But protected some tinder under here, and we don't have a lot of kindling left because we burnt a lot of it last night for dinner. So the best place to look for this sort of stuff when it's really wet is stuff in the trees. So I will collect some of these dead branches up here, the lower branches. There's quite a few of them around. So all these here are really, can use really good tinder because they dry off really quickly just from the tinder, from the birch bark. Once the birch bark runs for a little bit, these will burn well. So I'll collect a bunch of those and we'll get a big fire going for this morning. Because today's our pack out day and it looks like it's overcast. So here's what we look like today for our camp. It's getting pretty worn in now. It's a worn in camp. I'll take you down to the lake. We'll have a peek. So our tent pad still. It looks like it's getting a little bit brighter, which is nice. Hopefully the sun will peek out today. Looks like it might break out. Possibly. Oh look, there's some blue sky. That'd be great if the sun came out today. Dry us out. It's the worst when you pack out and it's raining. So I'm just out here on my log, which I used for rinsing off and washing dishes and whatnot. Just want to talk about the trip a little bit. I was super disappointed when we lost our main spot, the only camp spot on the lake, and then we paddled down and both sides of the lake were pretty steep and no place to put a tent at all. So we came down here and paddled all the way down to the lake, end of the lake. We're actually at the butt end of the lake now, and found a little hole, barely anything to work with, as you saw from the start of the video, and slanted tent pad which we had to scratch down, ended up being pretty good, pretty flat by the time we scratched it out. I didn't have any problems sleeping, aside from the tent's small, but that's, you know, our doing. So I guess the big dilemma is, you know, ethically, what would you do? You know, if we arrived first, we parked, and we began walking back, and then we hear a truck coming up behind us, and the truck has a couple dogs, 2 or 3 people in it, and they had made plans to come to the same campsite we did. We're walking in, remember? And so they overtake us and they continue on. After a short conversation, they basically said, you know, they're not giving up the spot, but if we want, we could camp with them. You know, remember, they played music most of the time. They had 2 barking dogs, and their option was, you know, we're not going anyplace else, we're going to this spot because this other lake that they usually go to is too busy. So anyway, I think you pretty much you might agree with us as to who deserves the spot. But anyway, we didn't make a big deal about it. Of course, they beat us to the spot because they drove right to it, parked at it. And then the funny thing is we got there maybe half an hour later, and they had already set up their tents, playing their music, sitting in their chairs drinking beer. So, I mean, that's the type of people that go to campsites where you can park at with your car. And of course they had a chainsaw and they played music. And you know, look at what we did. We built our own camp spot because we wanted to get away. And part of the reason we came to the very end of the lake is because we didn't want to hear them. And thankfully we couldn't hear their music. And they were only here for 2 or 3 nights, I think 3 nights. And they were left in the morning right away because they could pack up their car and take off. So anyway, I wanted to say that what could have been, you know, a disaster. We could have given up and went home. We turned into a spot that's worth coming back to, a spot that I'm actually pretty proud of. And we turned into home and made it really comfortable and really homey, actually. It's a really tight space, surrounded by woods, very peaceful and quiet. And, you know, this is a spot that's pretty tucked away that we can keep private for the most part, because from the lake looking in, you can't tell that it's there. And if people are coming to and planning to camp at this spot, they're probably going to stick to the front one. And if it's busy or occupied, then they're going to have to find someplace else, and they're not going to think to come back all the way to the back end of this lake, you know, because they probably can't drive here. They're not going to come. So yeah, we've got a nice spot that we can return to in future years, and something that we can keep private. And we've got some exploring that we did at the back end of the lake. We followed the swamp back up here about a half a kilometer. We found the moose shed. That was pretty cool. And there's a nice game trail where I can put my camera up, and tons of moose sign. So if I decide I want to hunt moose one time, this might be a good base camp, and I can go back here. We headed back that way and snuck into Algonquin Park. And a few lakes back in there. That was a nice day trip. And again, set my trail camera up on the other side and see what happens with that, which I have to go to this morning as we pack up. And we also caught a bunch of bass, which was pretty cool. I caught another nice one last night. I didn't have the camera with me. It was about 3 pounds, maybe 3.5 pounds, and let that one go because it was after dinner. Holden and Courtney were back at camp because it was raining. So anyway, yeah, that's my summary for the trip. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and there's probably a little bit more to come. Okay, so I'm here checking out the trail camera. It's next morning. I don't know if anything came or not, because, well, if you look behind me, the fish are all still there. So what I'll do is, if there's anything on the trail camera, I'll post it after this video. And just goes to show, you know, maybe an animal came but it couldn't reach it, which is doubtful. But those fish really smell, and they smell pretty bad, and they smell a lot stronger than any of your camp food might smell. This isn't to say that you shouldn't be really careful about how you protect your campsite, and I would never do this by my campsite. That would be pretty ridiculous. But anyway, it's still there, and I think, you know, if I had ran this experiment 5 days running, eventually something would come in and grab that.
Dad?
Yeah.
You know the trail camera's taping you?
I do. The trail camera's taping me, and this is taping me. That's pretty cool. So anyway, we'll see if anything's on the trail camera. I'm doubtful right now, and I can't check on the trail camera itself. I have to wait till I get back. So anyway, that was an interesting experiment. Maybe we'll see. All right. For this to attract an animal, and if so, what kind of animal? What do you think would be the most common animal it would attract, and the least common? Again, trail camera's over there. Set the video mode, and we'll see.